Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of combat sports, the legend Teddy Atlas. Teddy, circus-like weekend this weekend for combat sports.
Yeah, I think some of the residue of it was dropped off in my neighborhood here, messing with my internet. I don't know. I thought they were guys from Verizon up on that phone pole, but then again, I'm not sure. They could be clowns, because my my internet has been a little crazy. But here we are, thank God, and we're able to talk. And yeah, you had a lot of fights, a lot of action, a lot of events. Obviously, we don't call them quite fights. I mean, although there is risk, they are getting in the ring. They've earned the right to make money, and they've worked hard to get there, especially the Paul brothers. And they've created this niche, more than a niche. They've created this industry for themselves, and God bless them. You know, like I've said way before it was popular or easy to say it, I give them credit. You know, I give them respect and credit for doing what they've done. You know, respecting the sport, working hard, and finding something that was going to, be viable this way. And take it from where they were coming from, the YouTube with the follows and all that stuff, and then branching it into this. It's the American way. It's capitalism. It's at its best. And again, they locked into a market. And they created a market, but they might have hurt themselves a little this weekend, to be quite frank. I mean, we'll get deeper into it, but, all good things come to an end. I'm not saying it's coming to an end, but they may have, there may have been a little bit of a puncture hole in that balloon, that Macy's Day balloon that floats on that Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. That was such a huge parade. I think it still is. I took my son to it when he was 3 years old. Or at least my father did. I was actually in the gym with a fighter, and my father was good enough to take him. He wanted to see it. He wanted to see all those giant balloons in Manhattan. And this giant balloon may have gotten a little, leakage now with what transpired, where they might have went too far, or they might have went a little sideways in what wound up happening in the fight, especially obviously in the Danis Paul fight, and. Well, not really. I can't even say especially that one. I guess both are because the Fury KSI just wasn't fun to watch.
I think they set this whole YouTube boxing movement way back. I think Jake Paul, at least, he seems to have more skills than all of them, at least from my humble opinion. But these two fights were so bad. Everything about it was boring and lame. The whole thing stunk. And I like all the guys involved, but I mean, anyone who says that was good or exciting fights is delusional. And I hate to be critical of them, but if you're going to charge $50 for a show and then just hold on and hug, I mean, I think Dillon Danis might have been the most entertaining part, even though he made himself look like a fool in there jumping around in jiu-jitsu. Like, be serious, dude. You're in there as a professional boxer. Act like it. Don't make a mockery of the whole thing. But I digress. We can get into the fights.
Yeah, we'll get into the fights. Look, at the end of the day, they all cash checks, and that old saying, laughing all the way to the bank.
That's right.
This time they might be crying all the way to the bank, but they're going to the bank. They're still going to the bank. But
well, I think Logan at least had enough self-awareness after the fight. He said he's going back to WWE and his other interests, but I don't think anyone's going to miss him on the boxing scene. Again, no offense, A for effort, but man, that was a terrible, terrible fight.
And it wasn't,
Dillon Danis
it wasn't his
I don't even
fault.
know that he threw 3 punches.
Yeah, but it wasn't Logan's fault. I mean, he came prepared. He boxed. He showed the skills that he has and that he's developed. And I don't even think, I'll be honest, I'll probably take some hits, but I'm kind of durable and used to taking hits, so I can handle it. But I wouldn't even call it Danis's fault, really, because you are what you are. You were getting, I don't think he hid what we were getting. He's a jiu-jitsu champion, a jiu-jitsu expert. He didn't have any time to really hone any striking skills, and I don't know that he pretended to. He did what he did.
But look at what Jake Paul did when he got in there with guys who had jiu-jitsu skills. Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley put them to sleep. Logan seemed like he couldn't crack an egg with those punches. The guy wasn't even offering resistance.
See,
I don't know that he threw more than 10 punches. He was like a punching bag.
See, this is a good debate, but here's my comeback. When a guy's not really trying, and you just said it, not offering resistance, when he's just in a shell, he went into that peekaboo without punches and without head movement. A poor man's version of the peekaboo, if you will. But covered up, defensive-minded, defensive, mode, but not trying to take chances, obviously, not throwing punches. And when a fighter doesn't want to get knocked out, doesn't want to get hit clean or hurt, and just goes into a defensive mode, it's hard to catch him. It's hard. The guys you talked about that Jake's more developed, no doubt about it. But the guys you talked about that Jake got out of there, they tried. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Danis, to the level we're talking about, he didn't try to that level. He knew he would expose himself, so he didn't expose him. He threw a few punches here and there, but very few. A couple, he's a southpaw. He threw a couple right hooks that did actually catch Paul in spots. But there was few and far between. And again, to the point you made, where you said, other guys he got rid of, his brother got rid of them, were in there trying, but when you go into a defensive mindset and a defensive physical set where you're not going to throw anything for the most part, it's very hard to get rid of that guy. Guys, you hear it all the time in boxing. Couldn't get rid of this guy because he didn't throw punches or he didn't take chances. He didn't try to win. Whatever. But you couldn't get rid of him because he made up his mind to concentrate more on surviving than winning. And it's very hard to get rid of a guy like that. So, I'm not here to make excuses for Logan Paul, but that's legitimate. It's hard to catch a guy who's not giving you anything to catch because he's not partaking in the fight to the level that obviously you figured they signed up to partake in. And again, I'm not even blaming Danis because Danis, his thing was to, what do they call it, trolling? I don't even know what they call that stuff, but to drum up, to drum up all kinds of, controversy, to say all kinds of things, some crazy things, sometimes not such nice things, but for one purpose, not because he's that guy, but because he's the guy that knows that if he does that, it's going to create a firestorm that can sell. It's going to create something that can be promoted, something that you could do this, make coin, make De Niro,
Yep.
And so that's what he was doing. Anyone who thought he was doing anything else, I don't know. I don't know how to help you. That you didn't realize that? You're one of those guys back 20 years ago that watched the WWF or whatever it was called before the WWE and with McMahon and all them, and you got crazy. You started throwing things at the TV set when your guy, when your guy got beat or your guy's girlfriend got stolen on TV because the other guy, the villain, went in there and stole the girlfriend from Elizabeth. I think that was her name. And you got crazy. And then you said, what's the matter? Didn't you see what happened? Hey, are you serious? You think that's real? You actually think that's real? Wow. All right. Okay. Wow. I got somebody for you to see. I don't know if you'll see them. I don't know if you'll go with me to see them, but I'm willing to pay the bill for you to go to them and see if we can help you, buddy. So I think that's it. Let's get to the fights. I mean, that is the air that surrounded these fights, these events. That is the environment, the setup, if you will. The smoke and mirrors. To what is on the stage and what's behind the curtain. So let's get to what is really behind the curtain now. As though you were going to a what was the name of that famous magician? He's still around.
David Copperfield?
Yeah, Copperfield. There's the smoke and mirrors to it, and then there's the trick. There's the basis of it. The substance of what he does. Let's get to the substance of what it was and what they did. First of all, which one do you want to cover first, since we're talking about the promotional events?
Let's do Logan Paul and Dillon Danis.
All right. They drew a big crowd. Here's the real question, Ken. They drew a big crowd, probably big pay-per-view numbers. What were the numbers? That's the thing that I really want to know. It seemed like the numbers would be, you mentioned $50 or whatever. It seemed like the numbers would be pretty big with the carnival that took place, as we touched on, from the weigh-in, leading up in the promotional, getting everybody fired up, doing what it was supposed to do. It would seem those numbers were healthy. But, they may have, as we're touching on, and as you said very astutely, at the end of the day, they may have won the battle, and lost the war because of what we're talking about, because the fights weren't good. And, we'll only find out, I guess, whether or not future dates and events are hurt by this. But as far as Paul Danis, the co-feature in that, Paul won, obviously easily, boxing, using the jab, setting up combinations, when Danis just covered up, as we talked about, slowly walked in, couple of spots, Danis from a southpaw position actually threw the right hook and, as I already said, landed, but, not much. Very rarely did he move his hands. He did the poor man's version of the peekaboo, as I said, with hands up on his cheeks without the head movement or the punching. And again, not a big surprise. He's a jiu-jitsu man, which he reminded us of when he threw himself to the floor a few times and got into the crab style, which Muhammad Ali 35, 40 years ago named that Japanese jiu-jitsu expert that they fought. That was a fiasco. He when he threw himself on the floor and laid there for all the rounds, I forget how many rounds it was, and Ali named him the crab afterwards. But meanwhile, Ali got blood clots in his legs from getting kicked in the legs, but obviously he got paid. I'm trying to remember that guy's name. That was an awful long time ago, and that was way before we were here the other night. But they all start somewhere, these ideas. And that one started with Ali way back when.
Antonio Inoki.
Yeah, Inoki, exactly. Inoki. And again, no, not trying to make excuses, but he had very little time, Danis, to prepare. So Paul, the huge favorite, he's been doing boxing training now for, 4 years or so? So obviously, there's a reason why the line was what it was. A huge advantage. And not only in skills and development, but natural size. Paul, bigger guy. Danis 175 pounds when he fought. Paul around 200 pounds. But Paul brings the dough. Same way Canelo does. So Danis had to go up to him and, give up those, besides the advantage that he was already giving up, which was to the basic boxing technique and skill level of Paul. Look, it was a one-sided fight for Paul. It was ugly, as Danis, as we already chronicled. He rarely moved his hands. Tried to take Paul down. As you said, that might have been the most entertaining part when he tried to take Paul down. And also tried to get him into a chokehold. I guess he was too slippery with all the sweat, But that would have been interesting if he got him into that chokehold. That would have been interesting.
It's crazy.
Security was definitely told to be prepared to step in if anything went sideways. That was pretty obvious. They got in there really. Yep. And to that point, they did their job. But this is how I'm going to finish it. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. To exactly that point, I made sure I didn't forget. I made a note to myself that the great Chael Sonnen brought up an interesting point that perhaps Paul could have been disqualified once the security people got in the ring. Because in a real fight, that's the rules. That while a fight's still going on, if your people get into the ring or get on the ring apron, you disqualify the combatant. I mean, that's a boxing rule. That's a rule in the commissions throughout the country for the most part.
Yep.
But here's the but. How are you going to enforce those kind of rules in an event such as this? How are you going to do that? I mean, that would be like killing off the star, right? In a TV series.
Yeah.
Right? And then the series is over. And as far as we know, this series ain't over yet. This TV series wants to go on for some more episodes. So you can't do that. Although technically, Chael Sonnen is right. But, it's not always about what's technically right. It's about what makes sense. Here again, in the pocketbook, in the business of it, and obviously that would make no sense. So the next one is Fury KSI.
Yeah, this one was probably worse than the first one. At least Dillon trying to do jiu-jitsu moves made it a little bit more entertaining if he wasn't going to throw punches. But KSI with the holding, it was infuriating to me. Ariel Helwani commented on it as well, how bad it was. But my God, the holding, jumping in and holding. And the crazy thing is, occasionally he'd score with the jumping in and the being kind of awkward. But, Tommy Fury, to your point, KSI was taking chances and throwing punches. Granted, he was holding a lot, but Tommy's got to be able to get this guy out of there. He's a professional fighter. He's like, I don't know. This was hard to watch. Tommy Fury also said he's done with this boxing. He's going back to boxing, traditional boxing, which is probably a good move for him. He needs some more development if he can't get these like amateurish guys out of there. At this stage of his career, he's been boxing his whole life. But man, this was hard to watch. I am not looking forward to seeing any more of these from these guys that were involved.
Yeah, listen, first of all, give Helwani credit, as I text and tweeted, for being honest about it, saying that this is hard to watch.
Yeah.
He's getting paid.
Breath of fresh air.
Yeah, breath of fresh air for sure. We talk every week, it seems like, about these commentators howling for their meals and not telling the truth or the obvious that we're watching. but they don't want to upset anyone at the network who's paying them. Well, what about upsetting the people that are paying the network? Us, the fans. So Helwani did a rare thing. He told the truth. I hate to say it's rare, but it is rare nowadays. So he told the truth. Well, we were all thinking this is hard to watch, what you said earlier. Of course, Fury's the actually professional boxer here, right? And he's supposed to, as you touched on, and I'm going to get to your point, where some fans might be, whatever, just obviously disappointed in the overall action, and it disappointed maybe in Tommy Fury, even though he don't have that many fights, but he's been around a long time. He had amateur fights, but they obviously disappointed in his performance, okay? Here it is. I know he was supposed to, Fury being he, easily handle KSI. Only problem was, and I'm not making excuses, but this is just what it was. First of all, he didn't take his athletic greens. That's number one. He didn't take his athletic greens. But that might have helped. But here's the thing. He chose the wrong game plan and approach, Ken. And bear with me here. When you're fighting a raw, awkward fighter, like KSI, obviously, right? You don't necessarily press him. He pressed him. Now, a lot of people thought that would mean he would get rid of him. He thought that too, probably. Why else would he do it? But you don't press a guy like that because, A, you might walk into a wild shot, and B, you now allow him to kind of bring you down to his level, to be close proximity, where he can grab and get you caught up in the physical chaos that is going on with him, that he brings. So you're much better off, much better, staying on the outside. And I was kind of shocked that they didn't understand this in their pre-fight fight plan. You're just much better staying on the outside and picking spots, letting him make mistakes with his wide and amateur punches. Let him help you by reaching in, where he'll make himself available to counters on the outside. But instead, Fury wanted to be aggressive, and he wanted to be the boss and show that he dominated him and get him out of there. But instead, he just fell into the quicksand. Really, it really was watching somebody fall into quicksand he couldn't get out of. Like watching those Tarzan movies where the guy in the jungle walks into the quick and help, I can, I'll throw you a twig, but I don't know if that's going to help you, a lot. And obviously, it transgressed into an ugly fight all night because, again, he couldn't get out of that quicksand. Funny thing, here's for me, is that in Fury's last fight with Paul, he looked good and with a much better fighter in Paul. And he did it by boxing well, which he should have done versus KSI. I think I understand what happened. I think in his mind that KSI wasn't as good as Paul. And obviously he was right. So he thought that he'd just go forward and stop him easily, get rid of him. But it's actually easier, Ken. In my business, and I've done this with fighters, where I've had fighters that when they're in there with more polished fighters, if you will, they look better. When they're in there with more amateurs fighters at the beginning until they get a lot of experience, they have a harder time. And that's what he went through. It's actually easier sometimes to look good versus a better fighter than with a novice raw fighter, because the better fighter is going to do the right things and throw the punches the right way, which is what you're prepared for. And it creates less chaos, while the sloppier fighter throws punches from the wrong places, angles, and makes it harder, especially if you just walk into him. Again, I was very surprised that Tommy Fury and his people didn't have a better plan. I thought Fury won. There was a little whatever. Some people, I don't know if it was clear. Some people thought that maybe KSI won. I thought Fury won, but it got to the point like, who cares? Yeah, that
Exactly.
was the problem. Like, do you really? Nobody won at that point.
Yeah.
But I thought Fury won. But in the end, as I said earlier, the future, and you touched on too, the future of doing these type of events may have been lost, and Tommy Fury's stock as a fighter probably, he'll go back and have a chance to get to where he wants to get to, but his stock has dropped. Another thing, I made a few points here. Bell was wrong. Did you notice that the bell rang 17 seconds early in one round? And
yes,
really. And I was thinking, Ken, it might have been other rounds too, because on my TV at least, after that they seemed to stop showing the clock.
That's the best way to do it, right? Just remove all accountability.
So, I don't know. It was a little crazy night. Again, Fury made the fight harder than it had to be for him. As I tweeted, I wasn't positive who won, although in my tweet, I thought that Fury won, but I was positive who lost. That was easy. Us. So
that's for sure.
Anyway, let's get to some of the real stuff.
Before we get to the real fights, let's take a minute to give a shout out. You mentioned them earlier, our friends at Athletic Greens. Go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas. Use the promo code Atlas, ATLAS. They'll send you 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. Athletic Greens is the all-in-one daily multivitamin. It's all you need, made from whole food sourced ingredients, the best kind. This stuff is the best. I take it every single day. Teddy takes it. We've had fighters taking it in training camps. This is all you need to get all your fruits, vitamins, minerals, everything. All in one. athleticgreens.com/Atlas to get 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. Let's get into the...
All you need to know, the greatest endorsement you could get for that, really. First of all, is that, it's what it purports itself to be. It's real. Kind of like Evander Holyfield, the real deal, which he showed when it came time to show it. But the real proof of the pudding, part of it at least, is that you've been taking it through your triumphant journeys in all these damn marathons that you're just, chalking up like pelts on a wall all over the country, all over the world. And again, congratulations to you on that. Yeah, the latest one was a couple of weeks ago in Chicago. You've won them in Chicago, Boston, New York. I won't go into I won't pick at a scab. Talking about the one in England, we've been there. We still have our people investigating that.
I avenged them. I got the world title. Yeah, I got the world title next Sunday.
Yeah, you got the
last Sunday.
You got the only thing that matters. You got back the right way by winning, by sticking with it, and not complaining about it, and doing it the right way, rectifying things with a win. Yeah. But it's been there with you. It's been with you as part of your journey.
Athletic Greens, every step of the way.
So,
yep, that's the truth.
Yeah,
proof is in the pudding.
Yep. So, talking about the truth, are we going into the UFC? Because those guys are the truth. They are the truth.
Yeah.
They are the truth.
Yeah, let's talk about the main event. Edson Barboza with one of the best comeback victories you're going to see over Sodiq Yusuff. I thought that for sure the ref was going to stop in the first round. Barboza was getting his head punched in. He was getting beat down. But my God, credit to the referee for not jumping in too early, having the wherewithal to understand that, like, maybe this guy comes back, and sure enough, like Murphy's Law, he does. It was just, I can't believe he came back from the beating he took in the first round. He looked completely outclassed, outskilled, like he didn't even belong in there with the guy. And my God, he turned it around through all heart and just slowly wore Yusuff down and got the victory. My God, that was so exciting. I think that might have been my favorite fight of the whole weekend.
Yeah, well, with what we were watching, it was definitely up there. Listen, I'm glad you made the point you just did about the referee, because there's been fights in boxing and UFC throughout the history of their existence. Obviously, boxing's been around longer than any sport, other than maybe the marathon. But there have been examples where if you didn't have the right ref, a guy who didn't panic, didn't wait too long or too soon, either way, a pro, a real professional ref that knows what he's looking for, knows what he's supposed to be looking for, knows what he's looking at. If you didn't have the right guy, Ken, you know how many great comebacks from champions would have to be erased from the books? Think about it. Nobody talks about that. I'm glad you brought that up, Ken. We'd have to go into the record books with a giant eraser and start wiping out a lot of the greatest fights you ever saw, the greatest champions you ever knew. You'd have to wipe them right off the paper. If the referee didn't give them the chance at that pivotal moment in the fight where they were down, they were behind, they were on the brink of going off the cliff, but he saw something. It wasn't quite time. I'll tell you one that comes to mind. The most recent one was the Tyson Fury against Wilder in their first fight. When he was laying on that ground in the last round, I think it was, Fury was laying there like he got shot with a, M16. and he's laying there, right? Think about it, Ken. If that referee didn't know how to do his job and he panicked, he just said, he did this with the arms. Just wait. If he just did that, instead of getting over them, giving them the benefit of the count, looking at him, watching him, making sure he's not in convulsions, anything like that, and give him the benefit that he gave him of a fighter, of a warrior, we wouldn't be. There would be no fight in a couple of weeks with Ngannou and Tyson Fury. There'd be no Usyk Tyson Fury fight, which we broke here first. That fight looks like it's going to be happening for the unification of the world heavyweight titles. But Tyson Fury wouldn't exist in the way that he exists right now. He wouldn't. You'd have to just remove him from the record books. Really would. It's simply because those referees do their job. They know what their job is. They don't panic. They don't go too long either. But they understand an element that really isn't in the books. As far as, okay, look for this, look for the eyes, look for the, make sure he's not convulsions, make sure he's not in dire straits, something medically is going on that you got to jump. If it's a situation where a guy's supposed to receive a count and none of those other things I just touched on, are going on, give him the benefit. Because there's something that's not in a book to follow. And that's how to weigh the human spirit. See, there's something, how to judge and measure the human spirit, the human will. Because it will find a way. Because if it's there, if the person has that kind of will that has been forged over the years that he's been around and the journey that he's been on, and it's been forged where it's been preordained in him to have a destiny. To have a destiny of climbing that mountain. Whatever that mountain is. In this case, it was boxing. To climb that mountain. And things have transpired in his life to get him ready for that journey, to tell him that that's his journey. And he's already been through things where he's been falling off the cliff. With Fury, it was alcohol, drugs, oppression, suicidal thoughts. All of that. That was all part of his journey. Not a good part, but an important part. A part that prepared him. That really, as much as it almost killed him, what's that saying? If something don't kill you, it's going to make you stronger?
Yep.
How true is that? How true is that?
Yeah.
That it actually made him stronger. It formed something in him. Something in Fury going through that was ready to be ignited that night that he got dropped by Wilder. And there's a video out there that our man right in front of me, Sam Rivera, put up. And when I was talking about that with you on this show, it's a motivational video. A lot of people have watched it and have felt that they've gotten some inspiration from it. It's out there. It's called Rise Up. It's out there on the internet. Sam Rivera did it. And it's all about what we're talking about, where he's laying there. He's laying there. And as I said, I thought his life was flowing in front of him. Even though it was only a 10-second that you had to do something, it was slowed down. And that his life was flowing in front of him to the point where he was thinking, do I get up? Do I stay down? Do I exist, just exist, or do I live? Do I survive by just laying here, barely survive, and just see where it takes me? Or do I triumph? Do I get the hell up and say, no, 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 I am not going to lay here and let this define me? And that's something that there is no book on that. There is no way to prepare for that, for a referee to say, oh, let's see. You gotta give him a chance. And that referee gave him a chance. And that's why Fury is where he is. And to your point, the right referee was there to give Barboza a chance when he was getting pummeled. As far as the breakdown of the fight, you opened it up perfect. Barboza lost the first round. Got destroyed. And then a close second round. Third round is where it changed. He had a huge, of course, the first round is where he changed it by not submitting. What a spirit. What a warrior spirit. But in the third round, Barboza had a huge turnaround. First, and I really appreciated it, Ken. It was first with a right hand to the body, left hook to the head. Beautiful combination. And then some really nicely placed left hooks to the body. And then that huge kick. Unbelievable. Give Yusuff credit to survive that. Yep. It was a good grinding fight. Came down to the last round, I thought. Because if you had a 10-8 in the first round, which it would seem that it had to be, I don't know what the judges actually did, but yeah, you had to, of course, Barboza had a big way to come back. And so I just thought that it probably came down to the last round, and it was a big finish for Barboza in that last round. Again, well-placed combinations. Then he put some water in the basement, went to the body, those really nice body shots, and he finished it all off, really finished it with the sauce on top, the whipped cream, the strawberries, everything with those takedowns. I was thinking that perhaps he pulled it out or it might be a draw. But it seems like, tell me if you got the scores there, because I didn't get the scores, but it seemed like he won it clearly with the judges, I think. which, I don't know if that was controversial. It might have been. At the end of the day, while you look for those scores, it was a grueling, tough fight. Great comeback effort by Barboza. And my hat's off to both of them. And in the end, Yusuff allowed Barboza, really what it came down to was he allowed Barboza to take control of the pace after dominating him in the first round. Yusuff just wasn't busy enough for me, Ken, the rest of the way. But two good, honest warriors, and they showed that in their interviews afterwards. I just have nothing but applause for the two of them as fighters and men.
Yep, good timing. I've got the scorecards right here. We got 48-46 for Barboza on one, 48-46 on the second, and 49-46 on the third. Looks like Barboza got the last 3 rounds on last 4 on Chris Lee's scorecard, the last 4 on Sal D'Amato's, and the last 4 on Derek Cleary's, and 2 of the 3 had a 10-8 round for Yusuff in the first round. I don't know how Chris Lee didn't give that a 10-8 round. I mean, that is a fight that it could have been stopped and no one would have complained. He was getting smashed. So, yeah, pretty fair scoring, I think, across the board.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It sounds I thought it would be closer. But I wanted to see what you thought. But I thought it might have been judged a little closer, especially I don't see how you don't have across the board 10-8 in that first
Agreed.
round.
That's the only discrepancy I see. I mean, I some of those middle rounds were definitely closer, but I can't argue against having to pick one guy in close rounds, But that 10-8 round, that first round was absolutely 10-8, at least for me. But
no, I thought so too. All right, let's take me.
All right, well,
take me.
Let's get into the WBO junior middleweight champion Tim Tszyu in action against Brian Mendoza. Gets a unanimous decision. I mean, I saw all of your tweets from regarding Tim Tszyu, so it's hard for me to give any input that doesn't look to be influenced by those tweets. But I thought that you described it perfectly. He's just workman-like. He just gets in there. He just does everything correct. There's nothing neon about him. He just gets in, handles business, tough, durable, got an engine, and beat the brakes off of Mendoza. Unfortunately, down in Australia, I don't think he gets the marketing the same way some of the American junior middleweights and middleweights get marketed. So he's kind of out of sight, out of mind at times, I think. But it's not fair. I think Tim Tszyu is as good as anyone in the division, and I'd love to see him match up against some of the other guys like Charlo and some of the other bigger names. But I don't know why anyone would want to go there and fight him. He's in a tough spot being in Australia. But I'm sure he's going to get the fights eventually because he just keeps winning. How'd you like it?
Well, here's the good news, I guess, if you go off of what you just said. He's coming, that movie with Eddie Murphy and his sidekick there, Coming to America.
Coming to America.
They're coming to America, baby. I like that movie. I get a kick out of it. But anyway, Coming to America.
Yeah.
And he's coming to Vegas, he said.
Arsenio Hall.
Yeah, Arsenio Hall. He used to have his own late night show. Coming to America. He's coming. He's coming to Vegas, he said. He's looking for Charlo. We'll see if he gets him.
Yep.
But in the meantime, everything you said, I mean, I like him. I like watching him. I like him. I like what he is. I love Mendoza, the heart. Talk about a warrior. Talk about a warrior's heart. Wow.
Yep.
Did he show that? You talk about the UFC fight, how incredible was Barboza lasted through that first round. How incredible that Mendoza, again, with that will that I described, that specialness, that determination, that heart of a champion, how he survived those, not one round, but many of those late rounds. It went on very late at night. I was tired. But, it's from Australia. And turned out to be the best fight of the night, I think, probably, that I saw. And it was actually a tale of two fights. It was the first half, which was competitive, the first 6-7 rounds. The second half of the fight, which was not competitive. It was all Tszyu, where he took over. So it was kind of strange that way. Or there was really, again, the tale of two fights. Like I said, it was a decent but one-sided undercard. I made a note to myself, Ken. There was a decent one-sided undercard bout, but the guy was trying like hell that was fighting him with a 15-0 fighter from Australia named Sam Goodman. I just wanted to give him a little shout. He looked very solid, entertaining style, technically solid. Places nice punches downstairs and upstairs. He caught my eye. And as far as the main fight, from the beginning, Tszyu looked good right away. And part of why he looked good for me, what I noticed, just very calm, relaxed, good vision, always looking for the right spots to place shots. Competitive fight, as I said. Mendoza was more active, especially early on. He was more active while Tszyu continued to look for the right spots, the right shots. And maybe he was looking a little bit too long in some rounds. But Tszyu started finding his spots and pulling the trigger on them. And then when he did, when he started to do that, then he was the boss. And that's the best way I can say it, Ken. I loved the steady demeanor of Tszyu, but at times he was a bit too patient in the first half of the fight that I just talked about, and he got outworked. But then it was as if he realized it, that he stepped it up and he started to let his hands go more. And as I said, he took over. It was a battle of two fights. First half, back and forth, close. Second half, wasn't close. The feed from Australia went bad on my TV. I don't know if it was the feed from them or it was my cable. My TV was in and out for the last couple rounds, but it still was pretty obvious and clear to see that Tszyu was dominating, and that Mendoza, as I said earlier, was showing just stout heart, surviving, not only surviving, but at the same time still trying to win, which is really special. Mm-hmm. What impresses me about Tszyu the most, Ken, and for the fans out there, is that he gets into position to land solid, clean shots, and he's always balanced. He never wastes anything. Not quite level of Inoue, the great Japanese champion, world champion, but a little similar, which is a great, great compliment from me. I really, you have to like him, I think. You have to like Tszyu, how steady and consistent he is, and solid with fundamentals. Nothing fancy, very conventional, focused approach. Him and Charlo would be really interesting. But don't dismiss the possibility, because there's other fighters, great fighters, that are out there looking for fights. And don't dismiss the possibility of Crawford, the great, great, great Crawford, or even Canelo, to look to throw their hat in the ring to fight Tszyu. I know that, again, you'd have to do the weight thing but with those, first of all, Crawford don't care. He'll go up. He don't care. He's not going to tell you to come down. He'll go up. Canelo, you have to go to him. He's the golden goose. You want to get the gold, you got to go to him. So, but don't be shocked if you hear about that. But Charlo and him would be interesting. Put together the titles in that division. They're both good offensively. The only thing that I could do a little bit of, and I'm not knocking him at all. There's nothing to knock. I would knock him. But the only thing that I could, from a teacher training standpoint, that I could point at a little bit on Tszyu is that perhaps he could do a little bit more with his use of his jab. He has a good jab. It's hard, it's accurate, but he doesn't always use it. But the funny thing about that, Ken, you almost don't notice because he's really good, even without it, at walking an opponent down without reaching, without leaving himself open, and he gets in good position to punch, even without it. But there was some spots just to kind of stabilize things when the other guy might be stealing around, if you will, by being a little busier. I just thought there was some spots where the jab could have came in a little handy. And that's something that he should keep in mind if he does fight Charlo. But that would be an interesting fight. And one other thing, before we get into the other fight, I just noticed before we came on the air that some boxing news, maybe it's bad news, but whatever. Bad news bears. But some boxing news. I saw a promotion, Ken, for Razor Ruddock, the former heavyweight contender who fought Mike Tyson 2 times, if people out there are old enough to remember, because it's been a while. He's fighting James Toney, the former middleweight. Yeah, Ken, I know. I just wanted to, I don't know, I want to make your day, I guess. But he's fighting James Toney, who was a tremendous fighter, champion, the former middleweight champion. Ruddock is almost 60 years old. 60.
All fun and games till someone gets hurt in one of these things,
Ken.
and all of a sudden it's not so funny anymore. This is stupid.
I agree. Look, he's 59 years old, right? Tony is 55. So together they're 119 years old, right? I don't mean to, but as you just said, Ken, it's both dangerous and I think sad to see. I saw it was for, don't mark it down on your calendar, but it's November 11th in Kingston, Jamaica, where Ruddock is from. He's from Jamaica. What else? I saw it. I said, you know what? It's our job. Somebody's got to do it. It's our job to report all news as we know it or hear it. We missed some. I wish I missed that one. I'll be honest. I wish I missed that one, Kenneth. But I didn't. And but let's not miss the fight, the ESPN fight that we didn't talk about.
Yeah, ESPN. Before we get to the main event, let's just quickly touch on Olympic silver medalist Keyshawn Davis in action.
Yes.
Runs his record to 10-0 with 6 knockouts. He goes the 10-round distance in a really tightly contested fight against Nahir Albright. He gets a majority decision, but man, that was a close fight. Probably a little too close for comfort for the promoters at 10-0. But second time he's gone 10 rounds now. What'd you think?
Yeah, Davis Albright. Oh, here it is. The judges scored it, as you touched on, Ken, a lot closer than the commentators had it. Or they saw it, right? Much closer. Honestly, I lost focus watching it. It wasn't exactly the Alamo. Not even Little House on the Prairie, to be honest. I mean, good. Both of them know how to fight. Solid enough fight on both sides. But you got the silver medalist, the promoter's fighter, top-ranked fighter, Keyshawn Davis, And he, he's a good fighter. I mean, obviously, you don't need Teddy Atlas to tell you that. He won a silver medal in the Olympics. So, yeah, good boxing. And as I said, Davis is a good boxer with skills and, with the great pedigree of the Olympics, silver medal, all that. But he doesn't have any power or physicality. And and not that he has to have physicality, because he fights the kind of fight he fights on the outside. All right. But he's very cautious. That's his temperament and style. And we've had great fighters that are cautious. Great fighters that are cautious. Floyd Mayweather. But Mayweather was different. People sometimes say, oh, Teddy, you don't knock Floyd. He was a defensive fighter. He was an artist. But he'd go get you, too. I mean, he would... remember the Corrales fight. Remember, you could... A bunch of them. But, he was in there with Madonna. I mean, and he fought him twice. Floyd was a defensive whiz. Great counterpuncher. But when he had to go, he'd go. He'd go. And at the end of the day, he's very cautious. His temperament and his style, Davis. He's very efficient. But at least up to this point, he's also boring. Similar to top ranks. And look, he's making millions of dollars already. He's earned it. What's his name? Stevenson. He was a silver medalist too. He's also got the big promoter, the Silver Spoon. He gets he's won a title. We know he's one of the pound for pound guys on a lot of people's lists. I don't know that he's been tested yet to be on that list, because that's part of being on the list. Yeah, you got to be good, but you also have to have a resume that has shown that you're good with a certain level of fighter. I don't know if he's got that resume yet. Talking about Stevenson, I know that he's no different than any of these other fighters that are with a big promoter that they're taken care of, and they have their crew around them that insulates them from, anything they don't want to hear. Or if they don't want to hear it, that guy's no good. That guy's an idiot. That guy's like you're knocking him. But how about it's not you're knocking him? How about it says you're pointing out your job? You're doing your job and you're giving him credit. He's a terrific fighter, Stevenson, as is Davis. But it's my job to point out all the nuances, all the stuff that, quite frankly, only somebody that knows what they're talking about, but also that doesn't get paid by you or your network, is going to point out and tell. It's called the truth. And it's not being critical. It's actually just telling you how you could be better, or how you differ from someone else that also has talent. That's all. One of my favorites, no secret, Sugar Ray Leonard's one of my favorite fighters of all time. And he had talent. He had as much talent as Keyshawn and as Davis put together probably. But at least as much as either one of them. But he also had the drive to go and test that talent. And I'm not saying they don't have drive. They become at least Stevenson's become a world champ. I'm sure Davis will too. There's enough titles out there to choose from. I'm sure he will too. And he's got enough ability. But that doesn't mean that you're getting the most out of your talent. You're getting the most out of your physical talent, and your technique and your style is being used to its utmost. But the stuff inside that you have to dig a little deeper to see, to find, has that stuff been stirred? Has that stuff been awakened? Has that stuff been, called out? Not yet. I don't. Maybe if it's there, and there's only one way to know if it's there. To get in with those kind of fighters that will tell us if it's there. And Stevenson's going to get his chance for that. And like I said, he's a terrific talent. Even if they do act like spoiled brats, if you say something that they don't like, which is, I think, is just silly. I really do. I think it's immature. I don't want to call anyone stupid, but I think it's not the brightest thing in the world, to be honest. I would want to hear where I hear it plenty too, Ken. I hear it plenty, maybe more than I want to hear it, where my shortcomings are. But I listen. I try to get better. The reason I embarked on this whole thing that I just went into is because he reminds me of Stevenson a little bit, Davis. Their styles are similar. They control the outside with the jab and counters. Good defense. Play it safe. Stevenson's better. There's no doubt about it. But he's much more experienced, too. They both have, they're both obviously, they have difficult styles to look good against, to deal with and to look good. A lot of fighters don't want to, as they progress, unless they're getting paid, of course, the right number. A lot of managers don't want to be in with a guy that they just can't look good against. And listen, that's not saying they're supposed to change now and allow guys to look good with them, but it's just part of the reality that, yeah, you can be a champ. Yeah, you can be a real good fighter. But if you want to be a Sugar Ray Leonard, if you want to be, a Marvin Hagler or Duran, I know I'm going to the icons. I get it. And where these guys may never get close to. But if you want to be those guys, I'll say something that's going to throw some people off the chair. If you even want to be a Tank Davis, because Tank, to his credit, he also has the part where he's cautious in his head. He's not stupid. He's a smart fighter in the ring. He's done some things that would question that outside. But we're talking about in the ring. In the ring, he's a guy that knows when to be patient, knows when to be deliberate, knows when to move and not go forward, knows when to retreat a little bit. No, but at the end of the day, and he's got that boxing IQ like a Stevenson. I know he's got the power that Stevenson and Davis don't have. But he also, as I said, has the other elements that they do have. The ability to be cautious when he needs to be aware, to be technically sound. But he also has the part in him where he's going to go get you. He's going to go find a way to get you. And he's going to go get you. I haven't seen that. And I'm not saying do it in a reckless way. I think I explained that. But you have that want. That's got to be in you. That desire to go into another room in your house and find out what's in that room. What's in that room? Anyway, I think I covered that like a blanket, even more so than a few people out there would want me to. Maybe two of them named Davis and Stevenson. But again, if you don't understand where it's coming from, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Well, let's jump to the main event. Janabek Alimkhanuly versus Vincenzo Guerrieri. 6-round TKO for Janabek. Unifies the WBO and IBF middleweight titles. I like this guy. Kazakh, tough guy. I love to see him get in there with some bigger names, but again, I don't think he's a big draw. I heard there was not a lot of tickets, so there were a lot of empty seats at this show in Texas.
Well, when you can't pronounce a guy's name, Ken, it's kind of hard. Yeah. It's kind of hard, and I'm joking, but I'm serious. It's kind of hard to get around him when you have when it's hard to fight him and hard to pronounce his name. When those two things are in concert, it's a hard sell, maybe. It's a hard sell, but you're right. I like him a lot. I like him a lot. He's 14. What's he? 15-0 now. He was 14-0, I guess, going in.
15-0, 10 KOs. Yep.
He fought a guy named Gualtieri, right?
Yep.
21-0-1.
That's right.
Here's the most shocking part of it. I'm watching and I'm saying, this guy Gualtieri, he's got a title? Is there anyone out there?
He had the IBF middleweight world title, legit title.
Is there anyone out there that doesn't have a title? Is there anyone else out there besides me that has a fax machine?
Me, you and me.
Listen, is there any... Really, does anyone else want a belt? Because I'll get him one. I mean, it's getting a little dicey there, or maybe not getting. Maybe it's beyond the point of getting. But really, Gualtieri, he's got a title. Okay, he's got a title. As far as the fight goes, no contests. And that's not really breaking news, is it, Ken?
Nope.
I mean, or at least quite often, in the case of top-ranked shows. I'm not saying the other promoters don't have theirs too. They do. We've been down that road. We chronicled it very honestly, very well. But with the top-ranked shows, this ain't new territory. And again, the amazing thing about it wasn't a fight. It was that Gualtieri had a title. Janabek is, here's what he is. I mean, obviously, and also to me. He's a big middleweight with a ton of amateur fights, very long arms. He's a southpaw to give you even more trouble to deal with him. And he's good. He's damn good. He's very pinpoint with his punches, technically solid and sharp. And here, for those guys out there like Stevenson and Davis that think I'm only picking on them, take the cotton out of your ears and hear this. You ready? He's very cautious and careful, but he doesn't let it keep him from going when he has to go a little further. But that is his temperament. He's cautious and careful, and he's very accurate, and he doesn't waste anything. He goes to the body well. See, the thing is, when he did hurt the guy, when he saw he could hurt him, he went into that room. He didn't stay there and say, I'm just going to win a decision. And he went and found. He went and he was like, like a predator in a way that you're supposed to be in a ring, a predator, where he tracked it down and he took the prey back to his cave. I like that. And I want to see some of that. Again, do it the right way. Do it with a bow and arrow or whatever you're doing it with. In this case, you're doing it with your fist. You're doing it with your talent. You're doing it with your technique. But do it. Bring it back to your cave. He, again, goes to the body well. Uses his size and reach very well. I talk about that often. Some guys have those great attributes, but they don't know how to use them. He knows how to use them. Controls range and distance on the outside beautifully. He dominated, and he stopped Gualtieri, whatever, in his sixth. The guy with the belt. The IBF belt. He stopped that guy. Gualtieri. He stopped him in the sixth round. He places punches like I've left our brothers and sisters across the pond out of conversation too long. So I found a way to bring them in today. He places punches like a dart thrower across the pond. He hits the numbers that he aims for. One of the commentators confused me a little bit. I'm not hard to confuse, I guess. One of the commentators said that he had no skills in the amateurs, but that he made up with power. I don't know what he was talking about. I really don't, because I saw many skills. And I know he didn't just come about them. he didn't just find them. He didn't just develop them. So I was a little confused by that. But what I wasn't confused by was the expertise of him, the science of him, the ability of him, the technique of him, and the future of him. He's going to be a hard out for anybody. He'll be a hard out for anyone. For all those reasons.
Yeah, he'll be one to watch. He's got 2 of the belts, and Lara's got one of them, and one of the Charlos has the other one. It'll be nice to see him match up against either or both of those guys. But let's talk about the preview. Let's preview the upcoming fight for the UFC over in the Middle East. Last minute replacements. This is unbelievable.
How often do you get last minute replacements and the show gets better? Really? Where does that happen?
It's unbelievable. The main and the co-main both lose their 50% of the fighters involved.
And credit, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. Credit to both fighters. 10 days notice. Great fighters, champion fighters. They take this risk against great fighters. They take the risk on 10 days notice. Credit to them and credit to the boss man over there. Dana White, some people like him, some don't. I don't care. You can't argue with why his brand is what it is, because he makes it. No matter what happens, the fight falls out. He makes sure that the right fight's gonna be there. It's just amazing. Or it's not amazing why Dana White has kept this brand and product of UFC growing and growing and growing, because he never disappoints the most important people out there, us, you, the fans. He knows who he works for. He works for them. He knows that. He doesn't work for himself. He works for the fan. He works for the brand, and he controls everything, so it's easier to do. But I tell you, boxing should take a lesson from it. It's a pretty simple formula. It's a pretty simple formula. Put the best fights on, and when they fall out, still put them on. Find a way to still put them on. And how's that way? Well, it's not complicated. First of all, credit to these great fighters that took the risk. But credit to Dana White, because I can tell you what he did without talking to him. He backed up the Brinks truck. Yeah, he backed up the Brinks truck to make sure it would happen. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, yeah, Teddy, I would do that too if I just merged with WWE and we were jointly worth $22 billion or $24 billion. And, UFC earlier, a few years back, had sold for $4 billion or whatever it was. Yeah, I would do it too. Yeah, you would. There's a difference between having the money and going into your freaking pocket and spending it. There's a difference. And that's what makes Dana White and the UFC what it is. Like him or hate him, I don't care. You have to give him his due. He goes into his pocket. Yeah, they're deep pockets. He built up those pockets. He goes into those, and this is how he did it. By putting on competitive, good fights, great fights, week in, week out. He goes into those pockets, and he pulls money out of those pockets when he has to. Again, difference between having the money and spending the money. A lot of guys have it. I'll give you an example. You think Bob Arum would have spent the money if his main event, say it was a great fight, and the main event fell out, and he could get someone else, another guy, maybe even better, but it would cost a lot of money to do it. Do you think Arum's doing it? Yes or no, Ken?
Absolutely not.
No, he ain't. He ain't doing it because he's going to make sure that money stays in his pocket. And White's never going to be broke. I get it. I know the people, I don't want to hear it. I'm talking the truth here. I'm talking reasonable, factual, laid out truth here. He's got the money, but so does Arum. But he ain't going to spend it the way that White will spend it. And that's why he's where he is. That's why UFC is where it is. And that's why this card got better, which is extraordinary. Really extraordinary. I mean, Usman, I mean, it's unbelievable. Usman is now fighting Chimaev after Costa wasn't medically cleared, I guess, Ken, to fight.
Yeah, he had a staph infection, I think.
And Volkanovski, the great Volkanovski, the great, and let's not forget, it wasn't long ago that Usman was being called the GOAT of that division. I mean, and then he lost twice to Edwards. But Volkanovski replaced Oliveira, who's great, of course, champion, former champion, replaced Oliveira in a fight versus Machachev, which is now the rematch for Volkanovski because that's his only loss, was in a close fight to Machachev. And Volkanovski is going to take it, as is Usman, on 10 days' notice. Wow. I can't say it. I can't say it better than what I just said it. Just incredible. Volkanovski and Usman, you guys, I just applaud you. You're truly, it's one thing to say you're a beast, it's another to behave like a beast in all ways. They've shown it in the ring, in the octagon, and now they've shown it again in this way. They are truly beast gladiators. Take these fights on, as I said, 10 days' notice. Wow.
Well, listen, for the people that might be inclined to place a wager on this bet, and for our friends at MyBookie, if you're going to bet, please use MyBookie and use the promo code ATLAS, ATLAS,
and bet with your head, not over it.
Exactly. They'll give you a 50% credit on your first deposit. You deposit $2,000, they'll give you another $1,000 to play with. For the people who are going to bet, Teddy, we've got Machachev minus 260 and Volk at plus 200. Who do you like and why?
Give me the 200. He may lose. I'm not betting against Volkanovski. He's earned the right for me to feel that way and to respect him that way. The only problem, 10 days is rough. But hopefully he's in great shape. But
well, you remember what the great Michael Bisping did against Luke Rockhold on a 1 or 2 weeks notice when he gets the call to come in and fight for the title. Sometimes there's less pressure, less stress.
No, you're right.
And those guys, if you ever need an example in your life to stay ready, never get ready. When you stay ready like this, 10 days fine tuning.
You're right. And look, and this is where that specialness inside of you comes to the surface. And Volkanovski has that specialness inside of him. So I'm not betting against him. I know it's a tough one. There's a reason why those numbers are what they are. But give me the 200. Give me the 200. If I'm wrong, so what? It'll be worth it. It'll be worth taking a shot, not over my head, but just taking a little shot with the plus 200, just because he's earned the right for me to trust him or to back him that way. He's earned the right in his behavior. And the other guy's great too. The other guy's tremendous. But I'm going to go with Volk, and only because of that. Go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry.
Chael Sonnen has been talking about this since the fight was announced. Charles has basically said multiple times that he didn't want the fight, that there was always an excuse at Chael. Now, he did have a huge cut on his eye, but Chael was like, for $1.5 million, he said, I'll be in there fighting with a cut all over my forehead. He's like, come on, we're fighters. This is what we do. You got to fight. Okay, you got to cut. That's too bad. Get in there. Is that a $1.5 million cut? But Chael's been saying from the beginning, Charles has said multiple times that he doesn't want this fight, that he wasn't going to do this fight. Finally, it was made. So I would imagine Volkanovski taking the fight on such short notice probably had an inkling that this was a very real possibility.
Who was saying? Well, just clear for me. I misunderstood. Just clear in case the fans out there misunderstood or didn't clearly get what you just said. Who was saying they didn't want this fight?
Charles has said on multiple occasions since this fight was brought up that he didn't want the fight or he wasn't going to take the fight, that he didn't feel like going over to, at one point he said going over to, is it in Abu Dhabi or Dubai? It's in the Middle East. And Charles was saying, oh, this is a home fight for him. And then Chael did a whole breakdown and was like, actually, he's from Uzbekistan and your country is actually closer to where the fight is, and it's not a hometown fight for Makhachev. But Chael's been on him from the beginning. Charles has just never indicated like a real desire or hunger for this fight, and has, like I said, has hinted at either not wanting the fight or making excuses about where it's located. So, and Chael's been on it from the beginning. So when the fight was canceled, he goes, guys, he told you this fight wasn't going to happen from the beginning. So regardless of the reason, no one should be surprised. So I would imagine Volk is like, knowing that as well and listening to the language coming from Charles and is ready to go, clearly, because 10 days ain't enough to get in shape. He had to already be in shape or he wouldn't be able to even take the fight, not to mention the weight.
Yeah, listen, the mental realms of this sport, of any vocation, of any business, of any competitive, battle out there, whether it's in a courtroom, whether it's in a classroom, whether it's wherever it is, whether it's in a surgeon's room in a hospital with a doctor, whether it's in a ring, whether it's in a cage. The mental realms are the most important realms. They are. I mean, as long as the physical talents are comparable, then it does come down to those realms. If the physical talents aren't comparable, then those realms don't get tested. Then it's different. Then they never get brought into question or brought into the equation. Cus had a great saying, Cus Tomato, my mentor. He used to tell me, Teddy, in a battle between two comparable fighters, talents, the man with the stronger will always win. Will overcome skill, except in the cases where one man's skill is so far superior that the will is never tested. It's a great saying. It's truth. It's so true. It's so true. So we'll find out.
Yep. In the co-main, Chimaev is minus 260 and Usman at plus 200.
I'm not going against...
Basically the same exact lines.
Yeah, I'm not going against Chimaev. But I'll tell you one thing. It'll be awfully interesting. Let's not forget, Usman was being called the GOAT a year ago, whatever it's been, before his first Edwards fight, where he got caught, and it changed the trajectory of his career. But he's still champion, still one of the greatest welterweights ever. But it dramatically changed the trajectory of where he was going, or seemed to be going, in the last round, in the last seconds, or I know it was late in the round, with that kick, with that blind kick that was set up beautifully by Edwards that he never saw, that knocked him out. And then he came back and lost the rematch for even decision. So, let's not forget that. What Usman was before he wasn't, so to speak. Having said that, he's a physically strong son of a gun. And Chimaev is just a monster on the mat. We know that. But Usman was a monster on the mat. It will be interesting. I don't know how long it'll last, but it will be interesting to me to see if Usman decides to take him to the mat. It'll be interesting to me. That'll be really interesting. Because we almost forget how strong Usman was, how good he was there. And we know how good Chimaev is. As far as the other one with Makhachev and Volkanovski, I'm saying Makhachev's name right? Makhachev. Yeah.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't pronounce things properly, but I try. But at the end of the day, the most important thing, do I analyze it right? And in that fight, very interesting. I know it's the 10-day notice that is the thing that's hovering above it. Volkanovski has become a demon as a striker with his jab, and it reminds me of Khabib in a way that toward later in Khabib's career, the great Khabib, the GOAT Khabib, he became so much better at striking. We know how unbeatable he was on the mat, but he became so much better striking, and part of it was his jab. And Volkanovski has Well, he's always been a good striker, but he's a great striker. He's actually a great striker now. And he is tremendous and great on the mat, on both places. And, you know, the funny thing is that Machachev is a monster on the mat, and he's become, or was, but he's become even a better striker than he was, and he continues to get better in that area. So what I'm getting at is, it's good. I'm curious where Volkanovski takes this. Does he keep it to the striking? He's good in both places, but Machachev, I would say, is supposed to be, you know, the superior on the mat, but he's awful good at striking too. And Volkanovski is, again, he don't come in second to anybody. The only guy he lost to was the guy he's fighting now, Machachev. And that was a competitive, close fight. But Volkanovski don't come in second to anybody anywhere, really. So does he decide to go to the mat, or does he stay? I would think that he stays standing. And I'm wondering if the ego of Machachev helps Volkanovski. And is it an interesting twist on it, Ken, and a play on it? I'm wondering if the ego of Machachev gets involved, knowing he has the edge, that he had full preparation for this. A lot of people are going to say no matter what happens, if he wins, they're going to say, well, Volkanovski wasn't at his best. He didn't have full time to prepare, blah, blah, blah. I wonder if his ego gets involved and he says, okay, I won't go to my strongest place maybe, because he loves to strike anyway.
Yep.
But if Machachev says, I'll stay standing, which is Volkanovski's wheelhouse, if you will, I'll stay standing and I'll beat him this way. That'd be very interesting. That's a great point to see if the ego, if his ego gets involved here. Yeah, that could make it really, really, really interesting. Really. So either way, it's interesting. Yeah. But I'll finish with this. We broke those down. I think we broke down everything pretty darn well, to be honest. I hope the people enjoy this show. I think it was a good, solid show. We covered all sports, all events, everything that's out there to be covered. And we covered it deeply, as we try to do it all the time. I want to leave with this. With these fights that have saved this show, with these two warriors that stepped up to the plate, and with the head man, the boss man, Dana White, doing what he had to do to not disappoint the fans, to make sure that they got the card they were expecting to get, and even a bonus, even a Christmas bonus before Christmas. I think that boxing really, really, really could take a lesson. I've said it before. I'll finish with it again. And it's exactly why boxing is losing the battle that it's really the spot that he's had for hundreds of years. It's losing the networks left and right. HBO's gone. For those who didn't notice, newsflash, gone. The major networks have been gone for a while. Why? They're still doing all other sports. Fox is now gone. Showtime is leaving. Wake up, boxing. Wake up before you become Rip Van Winkle. I don't want Rip Van Winkle. He had a long beard, down to here, and he slept way too long. I don't want to go to sleep with the sport that I've loved and been with 50 years. So wake up.
That seems like a perfect place to wrap this week's episode up. Well, like I said, we've got that fight's coming up from Abu Dhabi, by the way, this weekend. That will give us plenty to talk about next week. I'm looking forward to it. I love a good pay-per-view weekend. UFC pay-per-view always brightens up my Saturday night. So with that, Teddy, you got anything else before we say goodbye?
No, just care about your neighbor. You know, last episode I talked about it a little bit. I always have it in my mind, even if it's not coming out of my mouth. It's in my mind, it's in my heart for this country, for this world, to be better, to care about people a little bit more. That's it. Thank you.
That's it. Well, guys, thank you for being with us. Please like and subscribe. Share the link. Do your thing. Leave some comments, and we'll be back with you next week. Thanks for being with us.